Good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to the June 25th special board meeting. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Roll call, please, Mr. Chambers.
Mr. Eastwood.
Here.
Ms. Pavlik.
Here.
Mr. Skidmore.
Here.
Mr. Ross.
Here.
Ms. Parkhurst.
Here.
Thank you.
We have the regular board meeting minutes from May 21st and the special meeting minutes from June 11th. I'd like to make a motion to approve those minutes.
I'll second.
Are there any comments, additions, modifications to be made to those minutes? Roll, please.
Ms. Parkhurst.
Aye.
Ms. Pavlik.
Aye.
Mr. Eastwood.
Aye.
Mr. Skidmore.
Aye.
Mr. Ross.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Because this is a special meeting, we cannot make any additions to the agenda, but we can make some modifications and removals. Are there any changes to be proposed?
We're going to have discussion down in the service agreements, number 15, but that last one for total education solutions, I had some questions on that, and I guess the questions might resolve it to where I'm okay with it, but I didn't get a response back yet on it, so I was wondering if we could pull that separate from the others.
Do you have anything?
Yeah, just that last one.
Any other modifications? Can I have a motion to accept with that one modification?
I'll second. Yeah, I'll make a motion that we edit out total solutions as an action item.
Make it a separate.
Make it a separate action item.
Thank you.
Mr. Ross.
Aye.
Mr. Eastwood.
Aye.
Ms. Pavlik.
Aye.
Mr. Skidmore. Ms. Parkhurst.
Aye.
Thank you.
It's summer and we have students. This is unusual. Gabriel and I have been going back and forth through email. They're excited to have our AI root robotics team here today. I think it's cool they were able to set up down here because when we're emailing back and forth, we were worried we're going to have to set up in the back of the room or the hallway. But Gabriel asked, should I bring videos or can I set up the robots? It's like, if you can set up with the robots, that'd be cool. So I want to invite you guys up here to present. I know you've had quite a successful year with the robotics club over at Root, and you guys have some cool things going on. Come on up.
science is used in both the robots when they see the black tape and the color sensors that are between cameras on the robots. And when they see that black tape, it tells them that they need to move. The arm tells what the arm is supposed to do. And for the harvesting robot, it tells them it tells it to lift up the carrot and then go back to see that black line. That's on it. So they're just in.
We want the TV to hear you. This is important stuff.
Would you like to start from the beginning?
Sure.
Okay, why don't you roll?
I'm up and close now.
Do we want to go through all our names?
That was just a warm up. You guys can just.
I'm Gabriel. I'm Eric.
I'm John.
And I'm Hunter. And
We are the Fancy Farmers. The purpose of our robot is to help with colonization of Mars, because as we near the day that we do get to Mars, we need to have a sustainable food source for our colonists. So what we'll do is we'll have one robot go through, it'll plant all the seeds, and we'll have one robot go through when it's time to harvest those seeds and grab the plants. Now Eric with our math.
There's a lot of math involved in both the robots we made. For the robot that plants, math is involved in the funnel that opens up, because if the funnel opens up too much, then the seeds will fall out. Well, too many seeds will fall out. I can have that one down. The too many seeds will fall out into the holes and won't be able to start the growing process. And if too little fall out, if too many fall out, then there won't be enough seeds for the rest of those holes. In the harvester robot, the angle that the claw goes up and down is important, because if the claw raises too high, it'll go too far back and possibly break. And if it goes too low, it could also possibly break. And now John with the science.
The science of both our robots is used when they see the black tape on the board. The black tape tells both the robots that what their task is and when to perform it. For when they see the black line, the harvester robot knows to pick up the carrot and go back and see this black line and then place it in that box and then continue. This one just goes and continues until it finishes. We don't really have like the robot, how it knows when it's done. We just have a set limit for the amount of times. There's also science used in when the planting robot plant seeds. When the funnel opens, the seeds go in quite quickly, so it has to be very snappy with the movement of opening and closing. Otherwise, there would be too many or too little seeds in each hole. Now, Hunter with the problems encountered.
throughout our very long robotic season, you would suspect that there would be many problems that we had encountered. One of the major problems that we had encountered was with the claw robot. Originally, on our first prototype, I guess you could call it, our claw robot was on two separate pivots, so it'd lift up like this completely, and that ended up making the robot tip a lot, so then it'd miss the bin, or it just completely missed the carrot when it went up. We fixed this by changing it to one singular pivot point, so it's stuck like this, so then when it lifts them up, it's under control, and it won't tip and will stay in the same path. Another problem that we had was with the seed robot. Originally, it kept veering off to the left because it was weighted too hard, or veering off to the right, and it'd fall into the holes. So we added more power to the left side, so then it'd turn to the left a little bit more and it wouldn't fall into the hole. And a third major problem we had was with the pigmentation. It was originally in the basement with the lighting. It was having trouble seeing the difference between the bright board and the dark lines. So we used a bright lamp to calibrate them so they could clearly see everything separately so they wouldn't run off the edge. And here's our presentation.
Which we can't do because now both of them are dead.
Batteries?
I think we forgot.
Yep. Wait.
They both went right.
I'm pretty sure they're both. Oh, maybe.
Turned off. Yeah.
Oh,
Turned off.
we're probably timed out. Okay, good.
If not, I have
I
a
hope.
video if need be.
Excuse me, John. I just.
Yep.
Yeah.
For this one, originally it was NXT, which is the original robot program and construction kit. But then we moved on to EV3 for this one, so it would be able to talk with that one. They're both connected by Bluetooth. The harvesting robot has originally always been EV3.
Yeah, the difference between the EV3 and NXT is a bit older model, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an
The grand.
older model, and with what we had, we wanted to make it Bluetooth, so it could, once that's done, it could go straight to the carrots. But with the NXT and the EV3, since they're different models, they couldn't Bluetooth. So then before the Worlds competition, we turned that one from NXT to EV3, so then it could Bluetooth, and it just made our project more advanced, which we liked, of course.
Yep.
They did most of the programming, yeah.
We just built them.
Yeah, he built a lot of the robots, I built the board and designed everything, and then they programmed.
Yep.
Yes.
It is the world's messiest one.
It's the world's messiest one ever.
Let's see. The seeds are gonna be fun to clean up again.
Yeah, this could be
For
fun.
a millionth time.
Don't mind the snapping.
So, okay, so it's reading that black strip,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
and that tells it to pick up the carrot?
yeah, but right now it's a little stuck because the claw didn't go down far enough.
Huh.
Just gotta give it a little tap.
You gotta give a little encouragement.
Ah.
They actually do. Stage theater light will.
Actually worked when I was presenting.
That'd be a first.
It has.
There we go now.
And
Maybe not.
oh,
Oh, so close.
dang.
I'm watching it tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah, it has.
It gets loose every time it tries to
It gets
ground
loose.
it. So it's just when it gets the last one, yeah, it can't hold on.
Well, 2 of the 3 colonists got food.
One almost didn't.
Almost did, but not that.
That's a good survival rate.
Yeah,
Pretty good.
6%.
It's above half.
That's a C. That's a passing grade.
Now,
Okay,
Not
you,
a good passing grade. That's a D, but.
What? 66.
now you mentioned you went to the Worlds. Can you tell us about the competition?
You want to?
I will. Yeah, it's a competition that is held by RoboFest in. Oh yeah. It's a competition that is held by RoboFest at Lawrence Tech University in Michigan, and it has teams from all around the world, such as South Korea, China, South Africa, Egypt, Ghana, France, Canada. No. Apparently. That's what I'm thinking of. Oh, and also Hong Kong and Macau, and they all come together on this one day, on 3 days actually, and present robots for different competitions, such as game competitions, which is more of objective based. It's more of objective based, and then there's like other ones like drawing contests, and all these people create robots to do these types of, I guess, activities for them.
And how did you do?
What about it? Should you talk about expectation?
Well, I believe we placed 8th at the competition, and if you calculate with all the teams, there was approximately about over 800 teams that competed, so we did okay, I
That
guess.
is impressive.
That was not, you could not fit 800 in that field house.
Well, that is an accomplishment even to make it to that level, and then to do that well, that is fantastic. Nice job, boys. You're welcome.
Still sitting in my room.
And thank you for bringing all of this to show us. This is very, very cool. You guys are very creative and are able to use all of your skills to come up with and problem solve, and that is pretty fantastic.
You guys don't have to stay any longer if you don't want to. I hear you're going to dinner.
Would it be a disruption with the board and everything?
Nope.
You want to, Mrs. President, you want to just take a 5-minute recess real quick? Want to just do that? Okay.
Yeah, we'll take a 5-minute recess. Thank you. And we're back. Yeah, let me see anything else, do we? Okay.
Just want to thank again our AAI Root students for coming and presenting. We've had 2 months in a row of student presentations. Last month, we had our Claggett students presenting the virtual sandbox, and then this week, the robotics. So you can see we got great things going on in the district and some real hands-on experiences that our students are gaining. At this time, I'd like to ask Mrs. Cassidy. We've got a couple books that we're presenting tonight and asking for a first reading. And hopefully we'll be able to recommend them for adoption at our July board meeting.
Okay, good evening. I am bringing to you today our new French textbook, which we're very excited about. As you know, as part of our strategic plan to add electives to the high school, and one of the electives that we are adding is French 1. And so BND, which we now know is well said, we looked that up today, is going to be our new French textbook. So this will be available for your review at the board office if you would like to take a look at it, and the public as well for 30 days, and it'll be on the agenda in July. We have 2 book additions to the secondary book lists for whole class instruction. One of the books is called Amal Unbound, and that's by Aisha Asid. And that is, we always check those out on Common Sense Media, and that was appropriate for ages 10 plus, and it'll be read by 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, or actually it'll be read to 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, because this is part of the Global Read Aloud project, which is a really cool project. Over 4 million students around the world participate in this from 80 different countries. So teachers read the books to the students, they discuss it. It's a 6-week program. There are Twitter hashtags where they'll tweet their thoughts, and then they are matched with other classrooms from around the world, and there are Skype sessions where they can talk about the book, with classrooms in the country and outside of the country too. So it's a really neat experience. We're really excited to be able to offer that to the kids. And the other book is Norse Mythology by Neil Gaiman. That will be for our high school elective, mythology and literature. So, and that is appropriate for 13 and older. So that'll be for our high school students. Are there any questions about those books?
I looked up a little bit on the first one,
Mhm.
and I'm interested if after it's implemented and put through, if we might be able to get a couple of the students or the class to come and share what it was like to discuss that with a class from another country.
I think that's a great idea.
We're doing something that's really
Yeah.
cool. I'd like to see the other side of it if you could figure out a way to help us with that.
Absolutely, I'd be happy to. That's really exciting. Another neat thing is instead of the teachers just reading the book aloud, they often invite people from around the district to come in and read. So I know that people from central office, including myself, have been able to go in and read to the students, which is always fun. And so you guys might be getting a phone call too. So, okay.
Thank you, Mr. Treasurer.
Thanks for the introduction, Aaron. District summary of finances. The district bank balance decreased by $117,000 in May to $83,900,000. General fund revenues were below last May by $169,000. State foundation property tax allocation accounted for the decrease. The general fund expenditures were above last May by $1.9 million. Personal service, benefits, capital, and other funds accounted for this increase. Our sales tax fund, we still have $3.87 million in. John's going to be doing a lot of spending here during the summer. The district spent approximately $41,000 in the month of May. And finally, the district received $134,000 in investment income in May, which was pretty good. And we're at $963,000 for the year, which is approximately $23,000 below the last 2 years combined. And as far as our 2 days cash goes, we are at 291.66 days. And this is down from May by a whopping 1.19 days, and it's above last year by 10.38 days. Questions? No questions. It's good. Final appropriations. I thought I closed the appropriations here last Friday after working on it for the last 2 weeks. And then this morning I had 2 secretaries say they needed additional monies, which didn't change the appropriations, but they changed the transfers and advances. So if you looked at those over the weekend, the dollar figures have changed on those. But our final appropriations are in. We have a total of $108,050,000. You could see that our variance is actually only $120,000 overall from what we started in September with. Our 5-year forecasted funds are down. They're down by roughly $1.1 million. And if you look at our 5-year forecast, we'll be presenting it again here in September. The amount of money's going out, it's going to be less than what the forecasted funds were here in May. So, questions on the appropriations? Thank you very much.
Board communications, would anyone like to share any committee news or anything going on?
Just a quick committee update. We, the policy committee had met just a couple weeks ago on June 6th, and we're working through several policies to present to the board at the next meeting in July. And on June 4th, I attended the annual meeting for the Medina City Schools Foundation, and Scott Tuchek was president this past year and did a great job with the foundation, and he handed the gavel over to Mr. Tim Turretin, who everybody knows, and he's going to be the president of the foundation over the next school year, next year. And so that group remains strong, and they do so much for the district, like running the tutoring center, as well as handling a lot of scholarships out that the community is given to be awarded, as well as having the Run for Fun as one of their fundraisers. It's actually a lot of fun to participate in. So that was a fun event, and there's a lot of good things going on. So thank you.
Rebecca, Mrs. Parkhurst. Last Friday, I attended the showcase for the STEM camp that was here. It was the program that Matt and Tina, first inaugural year, and it was geared towards the middle school kids, grades 6 through 8, which is neat because the week before was Camp Invention for the younger kids, but they age out at the 6th grade. So this is for the middle school, and it was just so neat because, again, continuing with what we saw earlier today with the robotics and some of the things that these kids came up with, including a balloon cushion seat for farmers to put on their tractors, and it was just very cool to see the enthusiasm. It was in coordination with the OSU Extension Office located here in Medina, and they did a really good job providing the materials. But it really, the students, they embraced it, and I think their favorite presenter, though, was the McJack Candy Company. I understand he's the Willy Wonka of Medina. So, but it was great. It's just great to see so much enthusiasm of these kids in the science.
July 9th, there's going to be an opportunity for some of our young teenagers in the district to get a chance to go to the State House. There's been an invitation. It's kind of done through a group, a mentoring program that's involving a certain section of wonderful kids. I got a chance to be involved with that a little bit, and I look forward to being able to come back and tell you more about how that went. But the whole perspective is trying to give people who may not otherwise have an opportunity to do these kind of things to kind of get exposed to it. And what's encouraging for me is the community. This is all being done by community people. It's not something that we're having to finance or to back, but it's a community coming together to help each other out. So I'm excited about that.
Just want to update the board on the rec center. We met last Thursday, short meeting. Mike mentioned the expansion. He brought up some issues with the expansion, and basically more discussion to come on that. We'll be talking about that. That's it.
Thank you all for your updates. Mrs. Pavlik and I also met with Mrs. Cassidy and Dr. Kwolek at the curriculum committee today and discussed upcoming curriculum adoptions as well as the feedback from the STEM camp, which it does sound like was a great success and that students and parents are already looking forward to next year. So that's great for the first year. In May, I met as part of the Business Advisory Committee, and there are minutes for that meeting available online if anyone is interested. That committee consists of board members as well as district personnel and members of the community. We discussed the capstone project that just finished up as well as developed an action plan for the project for next year. And I believe our next meeting is in September. Additionally, I just wanted to recognize that our treasurer and superintendent are involved in the day-to-day operations of the district, but also in other organizations. For instance, the Alliance for High Quality Education, which I think we have an agreement coming up here later in the agenda, OASBO, BASA, OSBA, superintendent's meetings, the 5 county treasurers. As a result of that, and they do make significant contributions, the board did receive a letter from the Ohio Schools Council commending and thanking us for Mr. Chambers, and the board wanted us to share this with the community. On behalf of the Ohio Schools Council, I wish to express our sincere appreciation to you and your Board of Education for allowing Mr. Dave Chambers the time to participate on our Treasurer and Business Manager Advisory Committee. The suggestions and feedback that come from this committee have helped the Ohio Schools Council provide beneficial programs to our membership. This committee is a very valuable asset to our organization. The Medina City Schools should be proud of Dave's contribution. I have forwarded a certificate of appreciation to him, thanking him for his service on this committee. So we appreciate everything that you do, and thank you for taking your time out to help the district in all of these ways. Thank you. You're welcome.
Yes, if it please the board, it is recommended that the Board of Education approve the May 2018 Treasurers Report. Item number 2 is supplemental to permanent appropriations. It's recommended that the Board of Education approved the following 2017-18 supplemental to permanent appropriations. This fund, the Secondary Transition Fund, the grant came in on the 20th of June. We have until the 30th of June to appropriate the monies, so it's vital that we go ahead and get this done. The funds itself, these are for, let's see, Paul Kidd drew up a nice little summary for me. Students with disabilities starting at the age of 14 must have conversations. These conversations focus on identifying appropriate courses of study and other supports necessary to address post-secondary education or training objectives, post-secondary employment objectives, and independent living in adulthood. And the funds can be used to purchase curriculum materials or professional development materials. We have item number 3, fund-to-fund transfers. If you look at these, they're all coming from the general fund here, except for the last item. They're going to zero out the funds that they're going into Blake Fenn field trip, Blake field trip, Waite field trip, and Northrop field trips. We have them going ahead and putting monies into their field trip accounts here so that they have a better accounting of monies that are going in and monies that are coming out. The last one that you see is the sales tax fund to COPS. We had the payment here on the 1st of June, so we're just repaying the, or zeroing out the COPS fund itself.
What is that?
COPS is Certificate of Participation. This is for the Northrop and Waite building itself. So, item number 4, it is recommended the Board of Education approve the following advances of funds. Actually, sorry, yours shows the return of advance of funds first, if I recall. That On mine, it's item number 5, but we'll go with item number 4 for you. Return of advance. It's recommended the Board of Education approve the following return of advance. These monies, last year you advanced funds to the cafeteria fund itself, the $170,900. I always like to return advances at the end of the year if we can, or throughout the year. Actually, the cafeteria ended up in the black this year, which is good, but they need to return the money, so they're in the red again, which is then leads us to item number 5, the advance of funds. It's recommended that the Board of Education approve the following advances. You can see the first item is the money's going to the cafeteria fund. So with the monies going in and out, they're still in the black to start off the year, which is a good thing. Last year they were definitely in the red. I believe they were around $160,000 in the red. So, however, if you look at cafeterias in school districts, that's not bad. So we're glad that they're, especially this year, we're glad that they're in the black. The rest of the funds, again, there's the secondary transition fund, which we don't have the monies, but we have to spend. The rest are our federal funds. Again, they're after spending on our part, we get reimbursed by the state. So we're looking at the $90,000 to Title 6B, the $45,000 to Title I, the $37,000 to Title 1D, $12,000 to preschool, $32,009 to Title 2A, and $1,721 to Title 4A. And number 6, item number 6, it is recommended the Board of Education approve the then and now purchase order to Interactive Health Benefits known as ACA Track. What occurred with this is we have 3 different departments that deal with ACA Track. We have the Treasurer's Department, we have the Human Resource Department, and we actually have the Secretary of the Superintendent's Office, who's the Secretary of the Human Resource Department as well. The billing came in here at I believe it was the middle of the month, and all of us assumed that the other was going to take care of it. So we are looking at the board to help us make this payment. The ACA Track monitors our health spending for our staff and notifies us if we have to add an individual to the next year for benefits or not. So. Item number 7 is our final appropriations. It's recommended the Board of Education approve the final appropriations for the fiscal year 17 and 18. Those have been presented to you. And item number 8, agreement with Kennedy, Cottrell, Richards. It's recommended the Board of Education approve the agreement between Kennedy, Cottrell, and Richards and the Medina City Schools to conduct the engagement of agreed upon procedures related to the Medicaid school program for the period of July 1st, 16 through June 30th, 19. Kennedy, Cottrell, Richards is our auditor for our Medicaid school program. We have individuals, our OTs, our PTs, that have to account for every Medicaid student that they deal with. They submit it to the state. Kennedy, Cottrell, Richards then comes in and audits their time, make sure that anything that was submitted to the state, they have paperwork for or electronic paperwork for. So, questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chambers. I'd like to make a motion to accept the treasurer's action items.
I would second that.
Are any comments or discussion from the board? Any comments from the public? Okay. Hearing none.
Ms. Parkhurst?
Aye.
Mr. Eastwood?
Aye.
Ms. Pavlik?
Aye.
Mr. Skidmore?
Aye.
Mr. Ross?
Aye.
Thank you.
First items, I think the biggest item tonight. It is recommended that the Board of Education accept the list of seniors of the class of 2018 who have fulfilled and met all the requirements for the state of Ohio and the Medina City Schools for graduation. So they will be officially graduated once you all, I'm assuming, approve them for graduation. Number 2, it is recommended that the Board of Education approve the resolution, membership in Alliance for High Quality Education for the 2018-19 school year. The Alliance is an organization that we've been a part of for, I believe, 3 years now. And it's been a very important organization in terms of advocating for our school district. The dynamics of education have changed quite a bit over the course of the past 10 years, where things used to run directly out of the Ohio Department of Education. Now the politicians are more directly involved with the education process and education decisions. Therefore, schools needed to adjust the way we approached concerns or good things or policies or laws that impact each and every one of us. We used to advocate directly through the Ohio Department of Education. We've extended that. We now work with our state representatives, our local representatives, and the Alliance is a major force in doing that. What the Alliance is it's a collaboration of high-achieving districts from across the state. One thing that we felt we were finding as the times were changing is that the the laws that were being passed for schools were very general, and they really hit upon most of the bigger city districts, like the Cleveland Publics, the Columbus Public, Cincinnati Public, Toledo Public. So we felt like there needed to be a voice for the higher achieving districts that maybe aren't as much on the radar, and thus the Alliance formed. I can tell you I've spent many hours down in Columbus, specifically at the State House, advocating for specifically our district, but also all high-achieving districts across the state, especially when it comes to some of the academic regulations and things like that. Number 3, it is recommended that the Board of Education approve the cancellation of the July 2nd, 2018 work session. And I know we'll have some people out of town that week, including myself. Number 4, donations. It is recommended that the Board of Education accept the following donations to the Medina City Schools. We have so many donations here in the summer that I asked Noreen to go back and make sure there wasn't a mistake. It's nice to see the kind of give back and support that we see from the community as well as the various PTOs. You know, one here that pops out to me is at Blake with a $1,300 contribution to help with transportation for field trips. So that's an expense that obviously does not have to come out of our general fund since the PTO has stepped up in order to help cover those costs. I also want to point out that our high school is donating $2,000 to Collins Cares Cure Cancer Corporation from the VOFT. And I think it's important to note that not only are we accepting donations, but we're working to teach our students to give back to the community as well. And when our students give back to the community through clubs and organizations, that's all through money that they have fundraised. So they've raised $2,000 and they want to give it to a good cause. Number 5 is French book adoption. It is recommended that the Board of Education accept the following textbooks for public preview with the intent to recommend for adoption in July following the preview period. And these were already presented at the top of the meeting. I do want to re-emphasize that this is part of our strategic plan to increase offerings at our high school, and foreign languages was definitely an area that we needed to increase. So we now offer French, Latin, Spanish, and sign language, and Chinese. Don't want to forget Chinese. Item number 6, new additions to the secondary book list. I want to thank Tina and Matt for really being on top of these books, because last year we had quite a bit of discussion of how we were going to handle some of these literature items. And both these books are intended to be used as whole class assignments. And per the guidelines we put together, we want to make sure they go through the full review process and review of the board. It is recommended that the Board of Education accept the following books for public preview with the intent to recommend for adoption in addition to the secondary book list in July following the preview period. Number 7 is a bylaw for consideration. This is a second reading, so this is a recommendation for adoption. It is recommended that the Board of Education review for the second time with possible adoption the following revised bylaw, and that's bylaw 160, and it has to do with the organization and structure of our board meetings. Most of the information in here is simply updated. There is one change, and in the new bylaw, as part of the meeting proceedings, I'm recommending that we begin putting a sign-up sheet to speak at board meetings outside in the hallway so people can sign in, and we can receive in advance any topics that individuals would like to present. We've actually been reviewing this policy for a long time. And the reason why, and I think it was a very valid reason, is concern amongst the board, as well as concern of the policy committee, that we're maintaining our open door policy and our free flow communication that we've offered at board meetings. So what we've done is we've made adjustments to the language. It's not required that somebody sign in to speak. It is something that helps us out in our proceedings. Board president at any time can allow anyone to speak, whether they've signed up or not. So we want to make sure, again, that we're being very open and having that open collaboration that we've worked so hard for.
Can I jump in for a half a second? On the flip side of that too, it's my understanding that if we have a work session, if we're merely having discussion, we don't always have public comment at the work sessions. But in our discussions about this policy, it was my understanding that if we had a work session and we were going to take an action item and vote on something, that we would continue to allow the public comment with that, but that we also would have a public comment section, because we can't indicate what topic that they can only talk about at that meeting and so forth. So it's my understanding that we're going to have public comments then at work sessions if we take action. Okay, so I just want to make sure we're on the same page as a board with that. Thanks.
And I just want to comment, so we've had a lot of discussion on this, which indicates how seriously we took it. And we even took it off of a reading to go back and discuss it some more. And my initial opinion of this was, you know, I didn't want to handcuff the community, and I was very stringent on that. But I appreciate Rob and Chris at policy, all the discussion we had, and all the board members at the work session, and Aaron at policy, and how we came about this bylaw. And I'm happy with it now. I think it's a good policy, or it's a good bylaw, and I appreciate, I don't know, we've been talking about this for a good 6 months, and I appreciate 6 months of, you know, helping me become comfortable with it. Thank you.
And item number 8 is a memorandum of understanding. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the memorandum of understanding between the Medina City School District and the State Support Team 8 to provide grant funds to the Medina City schools in the amount of $4,866 to be used towards supporting the district PBIS initiative. And those funds are going to be utilized district-wide, and I know a good portion of those are going to be used to help support the data collection of the PBIS program. We will be looking back at our programs, and if they're working, and if they're not working, we're going to try other directions. So this is an accountability piece.
Aaron, can I jump in real quick? At today's curriculum meeting, Rebecca and Christina and I talked about that and how neat, I think, with the scans, with that positive behavior, and to be able to actually look at the data and see, are there certain times of days where the behavior is better, worse? So I think it's a really nifty, and it's going to provide a lot of good information that the teachers are going to be able to use to help head off problems.
Item number 9 is another memorandum. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the Memorandum of Understanding between the Medina City School District and the Medina County Drug Addiction and Mental Health Board to provide grant funds to the Medina City schools in the amount of $6,000 to operate the drug testing program for the period of July 1st, 2018 through June 30th, 2019. Just as the past 2 years, the ADAMH board is going to be paying for the drug testing that we do for athletics at the high school. They are not only doing that for us, but they are providing funds for surrounding districts as well that have similar programs. One thing that I would like to do once we get into the fall is invite Mr. Hodke in to give the board an update on the program. I know that there has been some discussions about ways to improve the program, and those are some things that we're researching, and hopefully we'll have some answers to at the time. But looking at things like getting better test results from the test data. There's like different levels of tests that can be utilized. The other one is transitioning to possibly a cheek swab test. So it's a easier, quicker, and less intrusive.
The Exhibit A in that memorandum doesn't appear to be there, but are we to assume that that is our current drug testing policy is the Exhibit A? It says bylaws and policies. I just don't know. And I don't remember this document last year, and I guess we did this last year, but it refers to an Exhibit A. So I guess assuming the Exhibit A is our current policies, then it's my understanding that with this agreement, we don't modify our drug testing regime over the next year. If we make a modification, we'd have to go into effect the following year, and we probably would send them a copy, I assume, or maybe we could get permission from them if we needed to make a modification, I assume.
Yeah, and there won't be any modifications to this year's testing. We still need to look into it, and some of the things we're looking into potentially could increase the amount of funds that we would need, so we would need to go back to the board and ask them for additional funding as well. Field trip. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following overnight field trip in compliance with Policy 2340 for the 2018-19 school year. And this is a volleyball camp that's occurring this summer. I know it should be field trip 2017-2018 because it's in the current fiscal year. I see it's been corrected within the agenda item. But it was not corrected in number 10. Oh, it is correct. Okay, gotcha. Number 11, stipend payments. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the stipend payments to Ms. Jennifer Euler and Ms. Betty Miller in the amount of $150 each from Baldwin Wallace University for being cooperating teachers for Baldwin Wallace University student teachers during the spring semester of 2018. And a second stipend in number 12. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the stipend payment to Miss Angela Mormon in the amount of $320 from the University of Akron for being a cooperating teacher for a University of Akron student teacher during the spring semester of 2018. Number 13 is an agreement with the Juvenile Detention Center. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the service agreement between the Medina County Juvenile Detention Center and the Medina City School District. When executed, will allow the Medina City Schools to provide educational services to Medina County students who are confined to that facility commencing August 20th, 2018 through May 30th, 2019. What I'd like to point out here is we're mandated to provide services in some form to the youth in the detention center. The way it works in Medina County is the teachers who are over there are teachers of Medina City Schools. We are then reimbursed by the other county districts for the cost, their portion of the cost to run that facility, and those will be payments that will come into the treasurer's office as the summer progresses and into the school year. Item 14 is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following service agreements for the 2018-2019 school year. One is for student files and updates for medical records through Medina Christian Academy, so that's a pass-through. The other one is a pass-through as well for reading services. And then IT services is for the Licking Area Computer Association. This is our last year that we are going to be members of LACA. We'll be making a transition out of LACA at the end of this year, and we've communicated that to them this past school year. And the board actually approved a resolution to begin making that move earlier this spring. I also want to point out that this contract amount is approximately $50,000 less than it has been in the past. And I want to thank John Burkhart for his work in negotiating with LACA. Dave was involved with that as well. Myself, Ryan, in order to decrease those costs to the district.
Has the notice gone out then at this point to them for this year to get out for both the master organization as well as for our individual license, both of them?
Yes, yeah.
Aaron, real quick, could you just explain for the public the pass-through to the to Medina Christian Academy, what pass-through funds actually mean?
Yes, state law mandates that public school districts provide services to special ed students that live within the bounds of the school district, whether they're attending the district or whether they are attending a private school. So for accountability, those funds pass through the district for record-keeping purposes. And then we also work through the district in improving hires for individuals for those positions as well. But there are money and services that are going towards Medina City School students that do not attend our schools. Number 15. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following service agreements for the 18-19 school year with extended school year services, if needed, for the summer of 2019. That is, of course, with the removal of total education solutions from the list per board action. All of these are special education services that we're mandated to provide according to students' individual educational plans. We do work with multiple companies, and we also work to negotiate costs wherever we can. So you may see slight adjustments here or there in some of these. In addition, the costs will be dependent upon a child's individual needs, how extensive those needs are, and how many students we have attending that program or receiving services through that program. And this is a situation where we could offer these services in district, but it would cost us more money to hire the personnel or set up the programming. The last item is personnel. I'd like to recommend the following personnel as listed. First, I'd like to wish good luck to Paul Kidd. Paul has been our Director of Pupil Services, and effective July 31st, he's going to be accepting a position at the Lakewood City Schools. So we have posted a Pupil Services Director position, and we'll be looking for somebody new to fill his shoes. We also have a couple teacher recommendations that are on here. Jonathan Briley, we need somebody to teach that curriculum that Mrs. Cassidy presented tonight in French. I had the opportunity to meet Jonathan and was thoroughly impressed with him, not only as an educator and his educational philosophies, but also the kind of person that he presented himself as. So I think he is going to be a great addition to our foreign language department and staff. Nicolette Palmine, she's for AI Root Language Arts, and I also had the chance to sit down with her. She is an experienced teacher that's joining us from a school in Cleveland. So she's got a very diverse background in terms of student body, social economics. And she's going to have a lot to add to our staff, I think, in new ideas over there at Root. And this is a position that's being added to increase the staff because we lengthened the language arts instructional time. We were able to do it at Claggett without increasing the teachers because Claggett already had more teachers. So the addition of this teacher levels out the two buildings and allows for both Root and Claggett to have the longer instructional periods in language arts and math. Also, the personnel section is very long here. Most of this is yearly business. All of our supplemental contracts, or most of our supplemental contracts that need to be filled for the 2018-19 school year, anything from fall coaching contracts to directors, to band, class advisors, curriculum development coordinators, across the district are all listed here for the coming school year. There are no new positions here from the previous year. They are all the same supplemental positions that were filled at the end of this past school year. In addition, each year we non-renew our substitutes, which means they reapply and need to be re-recommended. And we're starting to build up our reserves of substitutes as well as some additional volunteers for our athletics. And again, I'd like to thank Amy Busby. She's done a nice job organizing our volunteer program to make sure we are getting all those volunteers presented to you, and also ensuring that any volunteers that are going to be working extensively with our students are appropriately background checked and safe to be around our students.
Thank you. Would someone like to make a motion to accept action items G?
I so move. We accept.
I'll second.
Any comments or discussion from the board?
Just a quick question. The July 2nd work session, are we rescheduling that? So, I mean, we don't have, I know the 2nd we're canceling it, but we typically discuss, action items before our main meeting. So I don't know, what, if people aren't available that night, I understand that, but I guess the question is, do we plan to reschedule that at this point?
I'm not aware at this point unless there would be items that would need to be discussed. I'm not aware of any at this point.
Well, I mean, we'll have action items in July, so we always, at the work sessions, many times we discuss the action items. That's been our practice for the past several years, so.
I believe we only discuss items, though, that are not part of the normal course of business. So if there would be significant contracts for construction, we don't discuss personnel.
Right, I would agree. But a
so
lot
I
of
think it
times we're doing
depends on what the-
personnel at the work sessions, but I mean, I'm just talking contracts and things. We typically have, we've used the work sessions for that purpose in the past. So I guess that was just my question. If we plan to reschedule, I just wanted to look at my calendar and kind of look at the date we're planning to do that with. But, thank you.
Any other comments or discussion? Any comments or comments or from the public? Okay. Hearing none, roll please.
Mr. Skidmore,
Aye.
Ms. Pavlik,
Aye.
Mr. Eastwood,
Aye.
Mr. Ross,
Aye.
Ms. Parkhurst.
Aye.
Thank you.
And I want to make sure we don't forget the item that's been separated out, so I'm going to do that now. It's recommended that the Board of Education approve the following service agreement for the 2018-2019 school year with extended school year services if needed for the summer of 2019, and that is for Total Education Solutions. I'd like to ask Dr. Kwolek, I know there's been a question in regards to the increase of that contract.
Do you want me to answer a question? Oh, do you?
I'll
Go ahead.
pose the question. The question I had is, because we get these nice forms now that
Yep.
we started a couple years ago with the board when we all got on, that is filled out by the department that tells us how many students are going to be served. This
Correct.
particular contract serves one student, and it had been it's an 8. You guys tell us what the increase is 8% increase. So that caught our attention as to, hey, it's an 8% increase when the markets may be yielding a different amount in some of these contracts. So that caught our eye to just say, hey, why is there an 8% increase? So thank you.
Yep. So I looked into it. It looks like the contract you have there has extended school year services and tuition included in it. And last year's contract that you approved, the amount on it was $70,000. The actual contract was $65,000 with some additional services at $2,500. So this is an all-inclusive contract. So technically it's an 8% increase, but it has additional services in it. So this particular student gets services, which would be tuition, but also gets extended school year services. So last year there were 2 separate contracts which totaled a similar amount. So technically this contract that's given to you is an 8% increase, but overall we paid about the same amount. It's more like about a $2,000 increase in services for the student, if that makes sense. So you'll see for some of the students it says just services or school year services, and then you'll get a separate contract for extended school year. These were combined, so we probably could have done a better job in the description just explaining to you that the 8% increase is due to combining 2 contracts. So I think that's what I'll recommend in the future, if that makes sense. So they didn't increase tuition by 8%, they just combined it into one contract. And I think Mr. Chambers will remember there was an issue with getting billed a little late on the tuition for this particular student for extended school year, so we asked that it all be combined into one contract. So is that helpful? Okay.
Thank you.
And we usually go over some of these in work sessions at times. We've in the past had them, so I apologize we didn't have it at that meeting. Thank you.
With that said, can we make a motion to approve that item? I would like to.
A second.
Any other questions or comments regarding that item from the board? Comments from the public? Hearing none.
Mr. Eastwood,
Aye.
Mr. Ross?
Aye.
Ms. Pavlik?
Aye.
Mr. Skidmore?
Aye.
Ms. Parkhurst?
Aye.
Thank you.
I want to say H, but I think it's actually I now. Resolution to reject bids and award a construction contract for the Claggett Middle School cafeteria project. It is recommended that the Board of Education adopt the resolution to reject all bids opened on June 4th, 2018 for the Claggett Middle School cafeteria project and to award a contract based on the rebid opened on June 18th, 2018 for the Claggett Middle School cafeteria project to Excel Management in the amount of $106,500. The reason why we are rejecting a bid is because we did not feel like we received any bids that were in the best interest of the district. When receiving bids, we want to make sure that we have the highest quality companies that are coming into the district and working with us. We were having a difficult time getting an adequate amount of bids for the project because the estimate of costs by the architect were originally too low, which we realized once we started going through the bid process. And it is due to the level of work that is going to be done in the cafeteria. When the project was put out for a rebid, it was a slightly higher amount to account for the differences in the estimates, and I'm happy that we got an outstanding company to make a bid on that project, and they've got the ceiling pulled out. Our guys did that, and we're looking forward to getting them in to get this work done before the school year starts.
I'd like to make a motion to accept that item.
I'll second that.
Any questions or comments from the board? Any comments from the public? Hearing none, roll please.
Ms. Parkhurst?
Aye.
Mr. Eastwood?
Aye.
Ms. Pavlik?
Aye.
Mr. Skidmore?
Aye.
Mr. Ross?
Aye.
Thank you.
Next is a resolution to award the bid for the AI Route Middle School Classroom Project. It is recommended that the Board of Education adopt the resolution to award the bid for the AI Route Middle School Locker Bay renovation project to Excel Management in the amount of $129,500. This project is occurring for two main reasons. One is curricular. In expanding language arts and math, we need more classroom space. On top of that, our enrollment at Root has increased, and we need more space to put students. In looking at a way to do this, we were able to do it very economically because of the way that Root was originally built. And it was built with areas that could, at a later date, if needed, be extended into classrooms. So if you've been into Root Middle School before, you'll know that there's big open areas where there's a bunch of lockers lined up. One of those areas is actually going to be transitioned into two classrooms, and then those lockers are going to be placed along the hallway rather than in rows in the big open area. We do have more flexibility down the road to add additional classrooms to Root if needed with some of the other locker bay areas. I think there's 3 total.
I make a motion to approve that item.
I'll second.
Any comments or questions from the board?
The only comment I wanted to make is I had a number of people call or talk to me about it because they picked up on the locker bay part. So they thought this was all about making new lockers for the school. And I was glad to explain to them the fact that no, we're actually able to utilize some good thinking, some practical engineering, and utilize that to expand our space like you just said. But it's not about the lockers, it's about the kids in the classrooms.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Mr. Eastwood. Any comments from the public? Hearing none.
Mr. Eastwood.
Aye.
Ms. Pavlik.
Aye.
Mr. Skidmore.
Aye.
Mr. Ross.
Aye.
Ms. Parkhurst.
Aye.
Thank you.
And we have some additional personnel items. I recommend to the Board of Education the appointment of Tyler Skidmore for a co-curricular appointment for the 2018-2019 school year. And that is choir director, men's chorus, and show choir director and showtime director.
Make a motion to accept that appointment.
Second?
Any questions or comments from the board? Any comments from the public? Roll, please.
Ms. Parkhurst.
Aye.
Mr. Ross.
Aye.
Mr. Eastwood.
Aye.
Ms. Pavlik.
Aye.
Mr. Skidmore.
Abstain, he's my nephew.
Several recommendations regarding administrator contracts for the 2018-2019 school year. The first recommendation is for contract adjustments. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following administrative contract adjustments. Director of Instruction from a 219-day contract to a 225-day contract. One thing that I've included in here in the public section, again, in order to be transparent, is a memo to the board explaining the reasoning behind all of these recommendations here in this section. For our Director of Instruction position, which is Tina Cassidy, when she moved into that position, even prior to it being a director, she came out of a building as a principal, and she maintained her principal contract of 219 days. With a principal contract, there are no vacation days. Principals get the same time off that the students get off, except for summer. They get generally the month of July. That's problematic with our Director of Instruction position because July is one of our busiest times in preparing for the school year. And I have to commend Tina because since I've been here, she's in and out during July. So I think it's appropriate to extend her days and put her on the same contract that the other central office administrators currently have, the directors currently have. The second is Evolve Academy Principal, a 199-day contract to Principal of Evolve Academy with a 219-day contract. This is another situation when the person that was previously in that position was not a principal. They weren't a licensed principal. They were listed as the director of the program. I think some of that had to do with the transition of Medina City Schools taking over the Evolve program from when it was run by an outside entity. The 219-day contract from the 199 puts the principal at Evolve at the same contract that our other principals are on. I think this is especially necessary at this time because of the major increase in enrollment that we've seen the past year at the Evolve program. At the time that we had the director, when that director left, we had, I think, 5 or 6 students enrolled in Evolve. We are already set to start the school year with 30 plus students in the Evolve program. We're actually a little bit concerned of outgrowing and starting to have to limit our numbers. One of the nice things about this recommendation is the Evolve Academy is self-funded. So this does not come out of the district's general fund. This is through the enrollment of students in the Evolve program. Evolve is doing very well financially right now due to the major increase in enrollment within that program. And Director of Community Relations, I recommend a base salary increase of $8,877.48. The reason why I'm making this recommendation is because it is my opinion that the current salary for that position is out of line with the director responsibilities and duties that I regularly ask out of the individual in this position. And the reason why I think that is because we did look into other communications directors or community relations individuals. Some of the districts we looked at was Highland, Brunswick, Strongsville, and their salaries in those districts ranged anywhere from $15,000 to $40,000 more than we pay in our position. And in an effort to stay competitive, this still puts us as the lowest salary in the area for this type of position, but it brings it much closer within the ballpark. And the second part of this recommendation is administrative raises. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve a pay raise of 2% for all administrators, excluding the superintendent and treasurer for the 2018-2019 and 2019-2020 school years. With this recommendation, it creates some stability for our administrative team in terms of knowing what kind of increase they're going to get. Administrators are the only entity that doesn't get multi-year contracts. In addition, I'd like to point out that this is a true 2%. There are not any steps for administrators in our district, so it's a straight up 2%. In addition, the board has asked about a merit-based paid system. I've already talked to our administrative team, and we will be getting together a committee to explore options for a system that allows for merit-based pay increases rather than across-the-board increases. And we'll be spending the next 2 years looking into that and continuing to communicate with the board on that process with the goal of having a recommendation at the end of the 2019-2020 school year.
Just to comment along those lines, we appreciate all of our administrators and the hard work they do. And I think in the past we've kind of done 1 year at a time with the increases, and I think some of the thought along that was that we really would like to see this compensation plan developed that rewards that administrator who really goes above and beyond. And hopefully that 2-year period will give the administration the opportunity to come back with a really strong recommendation to us that gives the ability to look at those matters and kind of cause the raises to be in line without breaking the bank or anything like that, but that would give us some flexibility there. Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion to accept this action item.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions from the board?
I just want to make a comment. This past year, I want to piggyback off of what Rob said. I appreciate, Aaron, you mentioning the merit, because that's something that's important to all of us. But this past year, we made a lot of strides, and these employees are the reason why. A lot of these employees, they've helped me personally, but I know we've developed more of a better rapport with our community, stronger relationship, and these folks are why, and so very proud of them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ross. Any other comments? Any comments from the public? Thank you. Hearing none.
Ms. Parkhurst.
Aye.
Mr. Skidmore.
Aye.
Mr. Eastwood.
Aye.
Ms. Pavlik.
Aye.
Mr. Ross.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, the next action item is now, I believe, action item M. and that is the treasurer contract clarifying addendum. It is recommended that the Board of Education accept the treasurer contract clarifying addendum. To explain this, last year we worked through a new contract with Mr. Chambers. In our efforts to be transparent and eliminate time sheeting and have everything be as part of the salary, it was overlooked that the number of days were more than could possibly be worked during a calendar year. So, and that was with review by various sets of eyes from the board and our outside legal counsel as well. So the purpose of this addendum is just to clarify the number of days that will be worked. There is no change in salary or any other benefits.
I would like to make a motion, we approve that as stated.
I'll second.
Are there any comments or questions from the board? Any comments from the public? Okay. Hearing none, roll please.
Mr. Eastwood,
Aye.
Ms. Pavlik,
Aye.
Mr. Skidmore,
Aye.
Mr. Ross,
Aye.
Ms. Parkhurst.
Aye.
Thank you.
The last action item is the superintendent raise for the 2018-19 contract year. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve a 2% pay increase of $2,800 for the superintendent effective for the 2018-19 contract year. It is to be noted that there are no built-in steps or increases in the current superintendent contract, and that this amount is in line with the other administrator employee increases.
Just one comment. I would like to make a motion that the board approve the 2% pay raise for the superintendent effective for the 2018-2019 contract year.
I'll second that.
Any comments from the board?
Comment. As I mentioned before, we've taken a huge jump this past year, and it starts at the top. Thank you, Mr. Sable.
I just wanted to add to that, you know, we brought Aaron in, and I am very encouraged with his energy and his direction, that he's working with our staff and in the direction we're going. And I also know that we're asking a lot from him with other expectations, and he's working on providing that information, everything from the administrative formulas for a possible merit relationship, things that are important long-term down the road, as well as the everyday things. So I appreciate what he's brought to our district, and look forward to moving it forward.
Any other comments? Okay. Any comments from the public? Thank you. Hearing none, roll please.
Mr. Ross,
Aye.
Mr. Eastwood,
Aye.
Ms. Pavlik,
Aye.
Mr. Skidmore,
No.
Ms. Parkhurst.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, we will open up for additional public comment. Community members wishing to address the board are asked to abide by the following guidelines. Please state your name, address, and affiliation. Please keep comments to a maximum of 3 minutes. All comments are to be directed to the Board of Education and to not any one individual. Comments shall focus on areas that have not been previously been brought forward to the board by the individual or associated group. Okay. As there are no public comments, I make a motion that we move to executive session to consider the appointment, employment, discipline, promotion of a public employee or official, and for legal matters. We do not anticipate taking any action when we return.
Second.
Ms. Parkhurst.
Aye.
Mr. Ross.
Aye.
Mr. Eastwood.
Aye.
Ms. Pavlik.
Aye.
Mr. Skidmore.
Aye.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank you all for coming this evening and enjoy the rest of the beautiful weather. Thank you.